which was the previous 15 chapters that we spoke about, which was approximately 2% of the crop, one should separate 1/10 of the remaining produce. So from the 98%, you're giving 9.8, right? From the original amount. And this is called Meiser Ishain, first tithe. Concerning it, it says in the verse, and the tithes of the children of Israel, that will be separate to God. These tithes are given to the Levites, males and females, as it states, to give to the Levites all the tithes of the children of Israel as an inheritance. Okay. That's the simple, right? And Israel is permitted to partake of the first tithe. And it may be eaten in the state of ritual impurity because it's not holy. So as opposed to truma that we learned by the Kohen, right? It's holy. And therefore, if there was mixtures, it becomes it becomes an issue then. If it got mixed up because it's holy with regular grain, for example, right? But here, it's not holy. So you can eat it in a state of spiritual impurity, right? Because being that it's not holy. Whenever the term holy or redemption is used in regard to tithes, the intent is the second tithe, right? Not the first tithe. Well, because we'll learn about the second tithe. The second tithe is you have to bring it to Jerusalem and you don't give it to anybody. It's actually for yourself or for whoever you want to share with, but you have to eat it in Jerusalem in a state of holiness. Sort of like, going to celebrate with the Jewish people, with God Almighty at the Holy Temple. What is the source from which we learned that first size is ordinary produce? Excuse me. And the truma will be considered for you as grain from the grain heap and from the fullness of the vat. So just as grain heap and the vat contain ordinary produce, so too, once truma's meiser has been separated from the first tithe, it is ordinary produce in all regards. So it's only ordinary once you've taken off the truma, right? And the truma from the meiser. Another thing here. So that 10% that's given to the Levite, right, male or female, that's not holy, it's only not holy after the Levite takes off 10% himself and gives it to the Kohen. Okay? For this reason, when a daughter of a Levite has been taken captive or she's engaged in forbidden relations, she can be given these tithes and she may partake of it. We had a different story when it came to truma, being that it's holy. So then the question is if and the household can eat from it, but if there's been a sanctity that's been taken away, so then it becomes a problem. But over here, that's not an issue because it's not sanctified. One hour where there was a report of a woman's husband died, or one witness testified that he died, she married, and then her husband appears, our sage penalized her and ruled that it's forbidden to partake of the tithes. So that was a bit, right? A woman's, she gets a report her husband dies, she remarries, right? Then her husband appears. So, hmm. I'm actually not clear on this because one witness testified is sufficient for her to marry. So I'm not clear what this means. There's special law for a woman. Usually you need two witnesses, but there's special law for a woman. If only one witness testified that that would be sufficient for her to remarry, because it would be very difficult otherwise. He went off to war, he went off to a land, and he got attacked, and so on. So I'm not clear on this law. Right? The Levites and the priests should separate the first tithe so that they can separate Trumas Meiser from it. So even though the Meiser is ordinary food, right? It's not holy, but you can't partake of it until the Trumas Meiser, the 10% is given from the 10% to the Kohen, right? So they should separate it right away. Separate first the tithe so they can separate the Trumas Meiser. Similarly, the priest must separate other types of Truma and tithes for themselves. Since the Kohanim, the priests, receive all types of agricultural gifts, it is possible for them to partake of a produce without these separations having been made. That's a question. And so, shall you separate also? Should include the Levites also. You includes the Kohanim. Excuse me. Not sure I got this. Yeah. We do not expropriate the tithes from the priests, as it states, when you take from the children of Israel, certainly none of the presents given to the Kohanim must be given from one priest to another priest, another Kohen. Ezra penalized Levites in his time because they did not ascend to Jerusalem with him, and during that the first tithe should be given solely to the Kohanim. Uh-huh. The Levites, they were penalized. It's meant for them, but it was given to the Kohanim because they did not come to the second holy temple. Ezra was in Bavel, story of Purim, right? That was the 70 years between the destruction of first holy temple and the building of the second holy temple. So Ezra was the one who brought the Jews back to Jerusalem, to Israel. And the Levites didn't go. So they were penalized that they were not given the tithes. When a person partakes of his produce while it is tevel, Tevel means that it was not the truma wasn't taken from it. The meiser and truma meiser wasn't taken from it, right? Or the Levi partakes of the tithes while they are a tevel, although they are liable for death at the hand of heaven, they're not liable to make reimbursement to the owners. This is derived from the verse that they will separate from God implies is that the recipients do not have any share in them until they are separated. So since you are liable for premature death, therefore there is no restoration to be made. They're liable for reimbursement, and they will separate to God, implied that the recipients do not have any share in them until they are separated. The aspirate is permitted for a person to continue eating afterwards. Separate truma and tithes. Separate from God implied that the recipients do not have any share in them. The aspirate is for a person to continue eating after. Okay. Folks, unfortunately, I have to stop right now.
Thank you, Rabbi Fai.
Thank you.
By the way, to let you know that next week, I'm going to put it up soon. We're going to have a special 8-hour day or 10 hours of learning. Different rabbis coming for the entire day, and we're going to have it online. We're going to have it here locally, but it'll be online. Okay, I'll keep you posted. Thank you. Have a great day. 6